Hello students, these are the notes that we took on our outline sheets about the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation set up a government that only had one branch. It did not include an executive branch or a judicial branch. It only had the legislative branch, the Second Continental Congress or the Confederation Congress. This Confederation Congress was made up of only one part. A one-part government is called unicameral. When you have two parts or two chambers of the legislative branch, you have a bicameral Congress like we have today, the Senate and the House of Representatives. But to keep things simple, the first government only had one part. In this part, each state got only one vote. This made the small states very happy because they had equal say as the large states. To pass a law, 9 out of 13 states had to agree. This made it harder to pass laws, as normally a majority would have only needed 7 out of 13 to pass a law. By making it 9 out of 13, the writers of the Confederation government made sure that any law that was passed was approved by many of the states. This Congress had powers that mostly dealt with winning the war against England. For instance, they could make treaties and send diplomats to other countries. They could also declare war. And they got to control relations with Native Americans in the territories. A territory is an area that is not yet a state. If Native Americans were in state borders, the states got to deal with them. They also got to create a national army and navy. They could govern territories and admit new states. They got to create a budget, and they also had the power to borrow money. However, they did not have the power to tax. They also got to set up a postal system. These are the total amount of powers that the national government had. Everything else was considered a state power. Under the Articles, we did manage to win the Revolutionary War, though I would argue that we won them not because of our government, but in spite of them. We also negotiated the Treaty of Paris that ended the war in 1783. However, we had a hard time enforcing the provisions of this treaty. We did get a postal system, a post office created. A national army and navy were created, though it was difficult to pay for them. One of the greatest accomplishments under the Articles of Confederation was the organizing of the Northwest Territory. Some rights of citizenship were the same in all states. Some problems under the Articles of Confederation included not having the power to tax. They had to rely on requests made to the states for money. Without having a chief executive, there was no one to enforce the laws. States were supposed to enforce the laws, however, some states picked and chose which laws they would and would not enforce. Trade was not able to be controlled by states, and there was no national court system, so there was no way to fairly resolve disputes between states. States were even allowed to print their own money. Some states sent diplomats to foreign countries, causing conflicts there. There was no Bill of Rights, though none was really needed as the new national government had so little power. The national government had no power to enforce its treaties. In the Treaty of Paris of 1783, the British had promised to remove their troops. However, some of their troops remained in the Great Lakes region. States also refused to compensate or pay loyalists for the lands that were taken during the war, as promised by the United States. And finally, the new government could not make states pay off their foreign debts. It was very difficult to get agreements in Congress because you needed more than a majority. It was obvious to everyone that there needed to be changes or amendments to the Articles of Confederation. However, one of the rules in the Articles that required all 13 states to agree to a change in the Articles made it nearly impossible to pass any amendments. And in the end, no amendment was ever approved. This left the United States with bad foreign policy, no economic policy, deeply in debt, and a government that could not even prevent anarchy, as Shays' Rebellion showed us. The need for a stronger national government was becoming obvious to everyone.